Fala galera do Mission Talks, tudo bom com vocês? Começando mais um episódio aqui hoje com uma convidada muito legal. O nome dela é Lydia Alabach, ela é americana e ela é formada em Educação pela Universidade de Oral Roberts University, lá nos Estados Unidos, em Tulsa. E ela tem muito para falar um pouco para vocês sobre crianças, sobre saúde física do missionário, dentre outras áreas muito especiais também. Espero que você goste, já vai ativando a legenda, tá? Porque esse vídeo vai ser totalmente em inglês mais uma vez. E além disso, já vai também deixando o like aqui no vídeo, clica no sininho para ativar as notificações e também já vai se inscrevendo no canal. E eu queria saber um pouco do que você está achando do canal, o que você gostaria de ouvir aqui. Comenta aqui embaixo para falar um pouco sobre o que você acha dessa entrevista e de outras também, tá bom? Um abração, espero que você goste. É isso aí, vamos lá.
Hey people from Mission Talks, how are you doing today? So I'm here with my very good friend Lydia. So Lydia, could you just introduce yourself? How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing great. So for us to start this video, I would like for you to present yourself. Tell who is Lydia, where did you come from, what are you doing today? Tell everyone that is watching who are you so that they can know you a little bit more.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name's Lydia Alabach. I am from the United States. I was born and raised in a super tiny town called Morrilton in Arkansas. You'll definitely hear it in my accent. I grew up there, lived there for 18 years, went to an internship for 9 months and just studied like how to take the word and apply it to our lives in a very practical way. And that was kind of like a strong foundation for me before moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I've gone to college for 4 years studying early childhood and elementary education. I got my degree in 2018 and started teaching 3rd grade. I've been teaching for the past 2 years. It's been a huge adventure, totally nothing that I expected. I thought that I would definitely go into more of a ministry focus, and the Lord took me on a path where I learned that I was doing ministry through my vocation. So that's kind of been the path that I've taken. A quick thing about me outside of what I do, just for who I am, I love adventure. I love being outside. I love finding new places, meeting new people, building relationships with people. I'm super social. But then again, at the same time, I love to be home by myself to like refuel and read and just chill before going out and doing it all again. So.
That's amazing. And Lydia, you were telling me that you're graduated in Oral Roberts University, right? And you graduated on education. Well, in fact, I met Lydia about like 4 years ago, something around. Yep, yeah, 3 years ago, and a trip that she made here to Brazil, a missions trip that she made here, and she did an amazing job with kids on her area, the academic area that she studied. And I would like to start with the question related to your major. So, what is education to you, and how can that be applied in the field of missions?
That is a great question. Education, it's very broad too. What is education? Based on my training at Oral Roberts University, we focus so much on the whole person. So we're created with a spirit, a soul, and a body. So anytime we are educating someone, it is giving them opportunity to develop all 3 facets of who they are. Their mind is definitely a huge focus in the education field because we're teaching people academics like math, reading, science, and all of those things. But the great part of teaching each of these subjects is that we are cultivating and building mindsets in kids of how to think, how to problem solve, how to discover, how to ask questions. And sometimes we don't always find the answers, but that's just part of the education process, right? It's messy. It's not one specific, you can do everything one way. It's learning how different people think in completely different.
It's not a narrow path, right?
Yeah, it's totally more like a windy path, like where you get lost in the woods, because there's so many ways you can get to one destination. And through education, we're able to partner with each other's strengths and ways of thinking and learning from one another So it's also like an education of those social, emotional skills, learning how to come together as a team to grow our brains, to grow our problem solving, and to find solutions that are effective as far as how to impact our communities that we are planted in.
It's great. And what do you think it's like the best way to apply all that you said on like, not just in missions, but in life? What do you think it's the best way to apply it?
Wow. To apply it, definitely like through the missions field, what I notice is that we're surrounded by people all the time, and education is utilized in every area of our lives, whether that's discipleship for the church or whether that's teaching someone a skill. Like in the missions field, I think it's so critical that we give people skill sets that partner with walking in the truth of the Word of God. Like we can bring them the Word, yet they also need a way to sustain themselves financially, right? So when we come in and we teach a skill, whether that's how to run a business, how to educate, how to be a nurse or a doctor or social work, whatever their passions are and whatever they're wired to do, we can take education and that process for learning how to work as a team and how to develop our minds and find new ways to solve problems and seek solutions, and give that as a gift to people so that they feel empowered to make decisions in their lives and to come out of whatever situation they have been in, whether that's poverty or broken mindsets of who they can be, like limiting themselves. Like we get to bring in a bigger picture and say like, hey, when we give you this skill, you can come out of where you've been. You don't have to be stuck here, right?
Great.
You just need someone to guide you through that and disciple you into that.
That's amazing. Yep. And when I met you, in fact, you were working with kids here in my home country and close here to my hometown also. And I know that you have a lot of experience with kids. And one of the questions that I have for you is like, what do you think is the most effective way to reach kids' hearts? Like using education, but not just that. I believe with your expertise, you can tell us a little bit about what do you think about it.
Absolutely. I would say the key way to get to a child's heart is connection. And every kid has their own currency, right? Like I had a student in my class. The only way I could get to his heart and to build a relationship with him, no joke, was talking about donuts.
What?
Like he didn't care. I know he didn't care about anything. He didn't have a lot of friends at first. He didn't want to do academic work. He had a lot of barriers that he was having to overcome and had a lot of trauma in his history. And okay, how do you reach a kid's heart that doesn't care about you, doesn't care about anyone in his classroom, doesn't want to be at school or have a vision for his life because of what he's walking through, right? So how are we going to get him to a place where we can't even educate him if he feels stuck in this place of hurt and pain? So I was like, okay, I got to find a way to connect with this kid. He loved donuts and his dog Rex. So I was like, okay, donuts, everything. In all of my lessons, I made up a story about donuts. Like if it was math, how are we going to solve this math problem? All right, we're going to tell a story about donuts and figure it out. And just finding a way. Every child has a point of connection, and we just have to discover what is it that they care about? And if we can step into their life and we can be like, okay, you care about this, so I do too. I want to hear more about this. Teach me about donuts. Teach me, why do you like them? Or maybe it's Hot Wheels, or maybe it's their dog, or maybe it's climbing trees. Whatever it is, if we can come to a point where they feel like we're connecting with the things that matter to them, then they begin to know that we care about their hearts, whether we really care about video games or not. Like, I care about that child, so I'm going to make this important to me because they're important to me. Yeah. And once they feel that love and that connection and that safe place in us, and they feel safe to open up, then we can get to a point where we can educate and teach and lift them higher. And by the end of the school year, this kid, like there were a lot of other things that went into building him up. However, by the end of the school year, what I can say, like he was a completely transformed child. Loved his class, didn't want to leave third grade. Like it was the most miraculous transformation in him because of love. Love never fails. And when we can take that to a child and show them that love, their connection, it'll totally transform their lives.
That's amazing. Wow. I can tell that is very true, because I seen with my eyes, like when I was with kids there, working on that mission trip with you, I saw like how connection is very important, and that's very true. That's one of the keys for sure. And talking a little bit about your passions, I know that you like a lot about doing sports and stuff like that, and I follow you on social media. I now know that you're in martial arts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, like, what's the importance of physical health for a missionary?
Yes. Oh my God. I am so passionate about this, Daniel, because I have watched so many people in ministry and missions who have so glorified sacrificing their physical bodies to the point where they're no longer able to minister as effectively because they're physically incapable. And it is so important. Like, God created us with a spirit, a soul, and a body. I actually have a picture. I'm a teacher, so it just comes out of me.
Yes.
So this is like a triangle, right?
Yep.
So we have our spirit, we have our soul, which is our mind, our will, and our emotions. And then we also have our physical body. If any of these elements are not being invested in and stewarded well, then the others are going to suffer from it. So, for example, I've heard so many people say, well, I have a covenant of healing with God, so I don't need to worry about taking care of my body. Well, that's like equivalent to saying, I have a relationship with Jesus and a covenant with him, so I don't need to spend time with him to develop that and to make it better. Right? Or I have a mind and I have the mind of Christ, so I don't need to read the word to renew my mind. Like, we wouldn't say that because we know that's ridiculous, but it's the same concept. Yes, we have a covenant of healing. Yes, we have a covenant of relationship with him, and we have a covenant of like having the mind of Christ. Yet we also, in that covenant, both parties have responsibility. God has responsibility and we have responsibility. And our responsibility is stewarding what he's given us. So whether it's our mind, keeping our minds renewed to the word of God, whether it's our spirits being in his presence and putting forth the effort to take time with him, to invest in him, or whether it's our physical body saying, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to be active because I understand that if this shell that I am living in is not being fueled with the proper nutrients that it needs, then I'm not going to have the energy levels that I need to pour out what God has put in me to pour out to the people around me.
That's great.
And personally, this year, I even have been walking on this journey of recognizing how much our physical bodies and how we discipline ourselves physically is so correlated with our spiritual well-being. Wow. So I've learned that whether I'm like in a yoga class or whether I'm doing strength training and I'm under the pressure of like, this is hard, I am weary, I don't think I can do it. When I push past those barriers in my physical body, then it teaches me a discipline that is applied in the spirit. When I'm exhausted and I don't know if I can go for it, and I don't know that I can wake up and go to work the next day and pour into another kid, or go to church on Sunday morning and pour out to the people that I'm invested in there. Like, I'm still going to do it because I know that what I feel in that moment is that's not my limit. I can go past that, but I have to push. And this physical discipline has enabled me and strengthened me mentally to be able to apply that in my work with the Lord. Another thing is like with counterfeits, like the way that I eat food, like I'm like, okay, what am I putting in my body that is a counterfeit, that's not healthy, that I think tastes good, but actually is not even close to a quality nutrient. And I started applying that in like the foods that I eat, and what, sugars like bananas are a great replacement in desserts instead of all these other sugars, and how it's like physically helping me. And it made me realize like, wow, in my walk with God, what are the counterfeits in my life? Like, what are the counterfeit fulfillments? What am I looking to fulfill me that is actually just a counterfeit of his presence? If I'm longing for something, am I fueling myself with him, with the real deal? Or am I trying to put my fulfillment in jujitsu or in my work or in my relationships with people? Because those needs have to be met first and foremost by the Lord so that I am fueled and able to properly invest in the relationships and the avenues that God has put in front of me right now.
It's amazing. That's very good. And most of what you said, it's perfect, because once we know how to deal with these areas, not just physical, but also spiritually speaking, in our souls, our emotions, we can know that we can be effective on whatever we're doing, not just doing missions, but also dealing with our families and stuff like that. And that's very good. That's amazing. So you go ahead.
One more thing on that, Daniel. I think a lot of people don't take care of themselves because they think of this lie that, well, it's hard. It takes a lot of time. And like, if you're going to be a bodybuilder, that's going to take a lot of time, right? And a lot of energy. But it can be so simple as like, okay, I'm going to meal plan my breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the week and just have something healthy ready to go. Like, just making that decision ahead of time and just prepping for it for the week sets you up for success for the whole week. Or saying, hey, I'm going to go walk for 30 minutes with a friend. Okay, great. That's relationships and that's physical activity, right? It doesn't have to be a whole strength training program. I like that. That's my jam, but that's not everybody's jam, and that's okay. So find what fits you personally.
That's amazing. Very good. Very good. So just coming a little bit more personal, talking about you now. I would like for you to just tell a little bit about yourself, and as you answered the question of what is the most powerful experience that you ever lived with God?
Okay, that's hard. That is so hard. My journey with God began where Jesus was Savior. I knew that. I was saved at 3 years old. I grew up in the church, okay? But did I live that out? No. Did I know how to walk that out? No. It wasn't until my 14th birthday that I made a decision in my life. Like, okay, I'm going to go from a place of saying I'm a Christian to living a lifestyle of walking with God intimately. And that's when the big shift began in my life. That's where he really became Lord. And I began to change my lifestyle according to the word. And then my 11th grade year, God told me to homeschool. And that was really hard for me because I had to give up a lot of the dreams and everything that I had in high school and all the awards I was going for, because I was super driven by achievements. And that year was a year where Jesus became the love of my life. And I began to recognize, okay, who do you say that I am? And that was the year where he began to instill identity and trust with him, and how to really hear his voice and live that out and minister to people out of the overflow. Instead of ministry being a job, it was more of ministry as a result of our walk with Christ. And so I would say that's really where the beginning of my walk with God truly gained roots and depth. And over the last 11 years, there have been several moments of power. A lot of them happen where nobody sees them. I think that's very common, where our deepest moments with God happen in secret. I would say, though, the biggest moment actually has been the walk that I'm going through right now. Last October, the Lord gave me an opportunity. I was actually in my living room right here on my couch, and I was just thinking about my life and how up to this point, I'm like, wow, it looks so much different than what I thought it would. And the Lord began to talk to me of and what if it begins to change again? I was like, okay, what are you talking about? Okay, I'm not surprised by these conversations anymore because they keep happening. And as a planner, it's really weird to have to release that and be okay, forget plans. I just make predictions now because the plans will never work out. But I was in my house and the Lord started opening up to me what if I gave this opportunity that would be a total trajectory shift that would completely shift any idea of what you thought your life would look like? And I was like, okay, tell me more. I'm really interested. And he began unfolding an opportunity to actually move to Colorado Springs. And there's a ministry that I've been connected with for several years called Pearson's Ministries International. And they are planting a church in Colorado Springs called Legacy. And the Lord began unfolding to me like what it would look like to move out there and to just support them and serve them there. And he also began speaking to me about different desires of my heart that he had begun to really plant in me and give me vision for in 11th grade. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I thought those visions, I was like, they have been on a shelf for a long time. Because when I went into teaching, it was like, I thought, okay, this looks totally different. Maybe I missed it when he gave me those visions. But God's been bringing them back out and saying, okay, here we go. It's time to step into what I showed you. Like all these past few years have been preparation for the fulfillment of this. I'm like, that's great. Okay. So I have been on a 8-month-ish journey of letting go of everything that I thought was what my life would look like. It's been a journey of trust. It's been a journey of what the coolest thing I would say, though, of the faith, like at the beginning of this year, he gave me this image of me in the middle of this giant lake. I love lakes, by the way. Like, it's just a beautiful picture to me. I would live there if I could. But a giant lake, and there being like one stepping stone, and I was on that stepping stone, and there was just a bunch of water in front of me. And he was like, just jump. And so I was like jumping, and it looked like there was nothing there. I was just going to land in the water and splash, right? But I was jumping, and every time I took that step, another stone was there to catch me. And then he's like, do it again. And then another stone was there to catch me. And he was saying, like, I'm going to give you one step at a time, but as you take a step of faith, I'm going to catch you, and I'm going to give you the next step. And oh my gosh, I've been living that out. It has been wild. Just watching him bring the pieces together and the promises that he's given me and how he's fulfilling them, it has brought me so much freedom. Like, and people, I'm telling you, when I tell people the story and they're like, do you know people out there? I'm like, yeah, no, not really. Like, do you have a job yet? I'm like, no. Do you like know where you're living? No. And it's like, I'm moving in 2 months, you know? And it's like, I sound crazy, but I'm like, how cool is it when we get to a point in our lives where we live so audaciously and we're so trusting God that it doesn't make sense to anyone around us. But when we know that we know that we know that we're being obedient and we're trusting in him, when we look back and see how he did it, people are going to be like, that didn't make sense. And it's like, you're right, it didn't. But because it's so much bigger than me. I couldn't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Yeah. It's going to be so big that it's going to project an image of God's goodness, of his kindness, of his faithfulness to fulfill every single detail of what he's promised in a grand scheme that's even better than what he originally showed me in the beginning, you know? Mm-hmm. So when we let go of anything that looks normal, anything that looks comfortable, like it's literally kissing comfort goodbye and saying, I'm going to take a step and do something totally audacious and just believe that God is going to be faithful to fill in all of the gaps in the process. So that's where I'm at right now.
And it's perfect, Lydia, because once we understand like that when we do these things, the glory goes to God, you know, like, absolutely. and the people are going to be like looking at us and saying like, that's crazy. And how in all that craziness that you lived, you still reach the goal. And that's the beauty of it, because God wants us to live all that so that people could also look to us and say, that's only God. That's only God could be making something like that. And that's perfect. So, Lydia, I think that we could just stay talking here. It's a great conversation, and it's always good to talk to you. But I also would like to finish on with a word. So, if you, in a very quick way, if you could just leave a message for those who are watching about something that God has been talking to your heart lately. I know that God has been speaking to you, either it's from the Word or from, something in your heart. But very quickly, if you could just leave a message of something that God has been talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of the biggest things is to know, especially for those of you who's like, your hearts are for missions, and maybe right now you're in a place that doesn't look like you're even going towards that path. I want you to know that you've been strategically planted. Amen. God strategically plants us in places to develop our character, to develop our vision, to develop our skill sets and our abilities and the talents that he's placed in us, so that when it is time to be released into that space of that missions work, that you're ready for it and you have the character and the endurance to withstand it, because you have been faithful in the training grounds where he has planted you. Never say, I'm insignificant because I'm not doing what Daniel's doing. I'm insignificant because I'm not at all of these conferences. I've been there. I've been in my classroom where I'm watching my friends go to the Send, and they're going to like all these big conferences, and they're coming back with these miracle stories. And I'm like, I want that, but I'm here with kids. And I remember the day that God spoke to my heart and said, you are building the future. Yeah. Do not think you are insignificant, because you are right where I've planted you. And just because it looks different and it may not be what you have expected, trust him. He will guide your steps, and let him develop you where you're planted. Do not become bitter, because you will prevent what he is wanting to do in your heart. Let him train you. Let him develop you, so that when it's time to take that next step, you are closer to him, and he means more to you than the job does.
That's amazing.
Because if we are walking out of this desire of like, man, I'm doing this for God, he's like, no, I want you to do it with me. But we have to know him. And it's these hidden secret spaces that he plants us in, where we develop that intimacy with him, so that when we take that step out, it's not, we are doing the work alongside him, not just for him.
Yeah. Well, Lydia, thank you so much for all that you shared, and for you being here, just releasing words of wisdom, in fact. And so thank you so much. And I appreciate you all that you said, and all that you blessed the people that are watching.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the opportunity too. It's always a pleasure to have conversations with you. Always.
Very good. Very good. So thank you, Lydia. And I think you there's watching. I know that you're blessed. So thank you for watching. And God bless you.
Bye, guys.
Então é isso, galera. Espero que você tenha gostado desse conteúdo. E não esqueça, cada pessoa que vem aqui pode ser abençoado por você também. Então na descrição do vídeo eu vou deixar as redes sociais e as informações dessa pessoa. Ah, e não esqueça, se inscreva no canal, clique no sininho para ativar as notificações e deixe um like no vídeo. Valeu!